And so, listen, whenever this happens, when the economy takes a downturn, we're starting to see more unemployment, we're starting to see people struggle. That's going to show up on the streets. And our one big thing today is homelessness in Indiana. We're seeing people on the streets already. We're seeing folks losing their homes already. And when you have nowhere else to go, I don't know what you're supposed to do yet. On July 24th, Trump issued an executive order entitled, quote, Ending Crime and Disorder on America's Streets. So, this executive order calls for shifting homeless individuals into what they call long term institutional settings for humane treatment. And if you ever have to say it's going to be humane treatment, that usually means it's not going to be humane treatment. Um, so anyway, yes, long-term institutional settings for appropriate use of civil commitment to restore public order. So what they're saying, they want to take people and involuntarily confine them to asylums. Yay, we're bringing back asylums. Um, they want to defund programs that they say fail to achieve adequate outcomes, including so called harm reduction or safe consumption efforts. And they want to end support for housing first policies that they say deprioritize accountability and fail to promote treatment, recovery, and self sufficiency. And increase competition among grantees through broadening the applicant pool. So they want to turn homeless services in just to a another business opportunity. It sounds like. Now that is the national outlook on that from the Trump administration. Jennifer, really quick, any thoughts on that before I shift this to a more Indiana-centric discussion?
Well, I know we talked about this briefly before we started the show, but one of the things that really concerns me is the disability population. Not only do a lot of folks end up being homeless with disability and mental health issues, but this is just makes me think of them trying to reinstitutionalize people with disabilities, and we are still working on deinstitutionalizing people. So I could see the state really wanting to roll back, right? Because we're rolling back everything. So we're going to go back and start putting people in institutions. That's what concerns me the most about this. I don't work a lot with the homeless population. I do have lots of friends down in Southern Indiana that do. I do know it is a huge issue, even if some small communities act like it's not. It isn't. It is a big issue.
Yeah, well, and about the institutionalization, I understand like that largely. Um, we sort of began that endeavor in the 70s, maybe under Nixon, and really ramped it up under Reagan, closing all these like long-term institutional facilities for people with mental illness. And so you hear a lot of folks on the right now say, that's why we have all these homeless folks, that they're mentally ill and that they should have somewhere to go. It's like, well, number one, y'all closed them out of their facilities, but number two, like, yes, these folks need treatment, but going back to that, those were inhumane places generally, and that's why we closed them. So, what should we be doing? Go ahead, Scott.
So, I'm an unpaid protester, and I talk to an awful lot of people. One of the people, it's one of my security people, right? A man I'm not going to name. He found himself homeless in the last 18 months. Why? He lost his job. He got behind on a payment, couldn't make his rent, right? This is homeless is a spectrum. And Trump wants to portray it as they're all nuts and drug addicts, etc. This is just a guy who was working as a line cook, missed a payment, got tossed out of his place, found himself on the streets, and was too proud to go for public assistance. So he lived rough for about 18 months. And There is nothing wrong with him as a human, right? So, Derrick, I can see you nodding your head. I bet you know the statistics on veterans who've been homeless.
Oh yeah.
Like this is just inhumanity at its heart. Ben Mycelis from the Midas Touch Network, there's a podcast I love to listen to, always says the cruelty is the point.
Yep.
And this is just another example of that. Are there homeless people who actually have mental problems? Sure. But incarcerating people in cages, which is what they're talking about, right? Don't believe this. Oh, humanity. Oh, the humane treatment. It's going to be putting people in cages just like they put kids in cages at the border, right? The real solution on this is to deal with housing. And quite honestly, I would wager if you looked at this in terms of housing and building tiny homes, it would end up being cheaper and be a long-term solution. What this is just another economic opportunity for the right. It's another grift, and it's madness.
Yeah, because inevitably these what they're calling, humane long-term institutional settings are going to be private enterprises, most likely Republican donors who are going to get those sweet government contracts to incarcerate people. Now, Scott mentioned veterans. Jennifer mentioned the disabled population. This is two groups of folks that are overrepresented amongst the homeless population. And there was a story, actually several stories in the Indianapolis Star this week regarding a homeless camp there in the Fountain Square neighborhood. And at least one of the stories centers around a disabled woman talking about how she had come to be homeless and living in this camp, and her disabled brother too. And so this Fountain Square homeless camp has been controversial for several months. So the city said on July 25th that they were going to shut it down here in a couple weeks. This reverses the city's prior stance. As recently as July 23rd, they said the camp did not warrant closure under a 2021 city ordinance called the Homeless Bill of Rights. That policy typically allows residents to stay in camps as long as they are not, quote, overrun with waste, blocking a public right-of-way, or severely threatening public safety. So, whenever you get a situation like this, you're going to see some neighbors and local businesses who complain about this camp being in their neighborhood, and so they complained about trash, human and animal waste, drug use, and drunkenness. And there was also an alleged instance of animal abuse at this camp, pretty gruesome. And so city officials and social workers were called in. They're ramping up a program called Streets to Home Indy, which is aiming to move more than 300 people known to be living outdoors into housing by next June. Well, the problem with that is that this program has not ramped up yet, and they're going to push these folks out before the housing first program is ramped up. So many of the residents won't be housed because it's still getting underway. Many neighbors and advocates denounced the decision as merely shifting the problem of unsheltered homelessness from one neighborhood to the next, because they're going to shut down this camp. These people have nowhere to go. They're just going to go to another camp or make another camp. And the Office of Public Health and Safety Director Andrew Merkley said these folks will be offered emergency shelter beds, but he conceded that those beds aren't good options for many people because, they force people into group living situations that aren't appropriate. They also often impose restrictions on couples or pets or, substance use. So in Indy, we have this very visible problem popping up into the news. Scott, are you in Indianapolis?
Fishers, actually.
Fisher's. Okay, so have you been paying attention to the story? It's right down the way.
I have.
So, what do you think? I mean, is shutting down this camp gonna help at all?
It's just kicking the can down the street. Ultimately, ultimately what we have to do is we have to accept. We have to help people. We have to accept that when you have a social safety net that is as sparse as we have, at some point people are going to fall through the cracks. And the solution is to look at them as victims rather than as people that are the goal on the right is to say everyone's, succeed or fail. It's all Darwinian. And I think success is nuanced enough that you have to accept that sometimes people need help. I don't know anyone in the world who actually succeeded purely on their own merits, right? We all get help from the system somehow.
Yeah, we really do. Derrick, you you say you've seen a lot of veterans fall into the homelessness trap. You are there programs in place to at least keep our veterans housed? I mean, if anybody has earned it, it's our veterans.
In LA, they're doing something for veterans. Trump has ordered, I think it was a $600 million, I don't want to say facility, but area to house homeless veterans. But there isn't much out there for veterans. And I mean, just to be completely honest here, I know what it means to be homeless. Not as an outsider looking in, but when I was a kid, I slept in a car at the beach in Southern California because my parents did not know how to handle money. There was nothing wrong with them mentally. They just didn't know how to handle money. When we moved back to Indiana, because my mom got a job at DFAS in Lawrence, once again, fell into that issue of my parents missing a bill, spending money they shouldn't have, and ending up at Dayspring Center in downtown Indy. I've slept in cars at parking lots at Walmarts. I mean, I know what it's like to be a homeless child. So to me, this isn't about the political aspect of it. It's personal for me because I've lived that life and I was able to, as soon as I turned 18, I went into the military. And that's what saved me from being homeless myself. There are safety nets out there. There's the township trustees, which their primary thing is helping people in need. But I mean, 1 in 10 homeless are veterans. 90% of those veterans have PTSD. I'm 100% VA because of PTSD. There isn't one person who serves in the military that doesn't have PTSD. We all have it from something. Military is not for the faint of heart. But, I mean, we need to concentrate on the housing first model. We need to get rid of the barriers that are stopping people from getting into a house, into a shelter, into a tiny home. Because that is what's stopping people from being able to get help. Is if somebody relapses, they're kicked out of the program. There are tons of families that are in the same situation that my family was when I was a kid. There's nothing mentally wrong with them. they didn't know how to handle money. They got laid off from a job. They just, life happened, and they had nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
So I mean, if there was a program out there, and there is, Seattle, Portland, let me see, Salt Lake City, Houston, Texas, Burlington, Vermont, and Seattle, Washington have housing first models, and they are doing great. Over, I think it was 27,000 people have actually gone from homeless to housed in these programs. They've gotten jobs through them. They've gotten mental help. They've gotten addiction help from these programs. And Indiana needs that. Almost.
Yeah. Sorry, Derrick.
Major said he needs it.
Yeah, 100%. And so this Streets to Home program in Indy, is part of their housing first approach. And yeah, there are, like you said, other cities like Dallas, Milwaukee, Cleveland have done this too. Cities about the same size as Indianapolis. But these are the kind of programs, and we know they work, right? The statistics prove that housing first is the number one most effective at keeping people housed, but also it's cheaper than a policing first model like we use in so many places. But that Trump order that we talked about is specifically aiming to end support for housing first policies, because they say those deprioritize accountability and fail to promote treatment, recovery, and self-sufficiency. Those are their words. And so what we're gonna find if they don't support housing first policies, we're just going to wind up putting more people on the streets, kicking the can down the road, and pushing the problem from place to place. And on those lines, I wanted to bring up something that the mayor here in Bloomington said this week. So Kerry Thomson held a press conference, which is a exceedingly rare occurrence for her, but this one in particular was focused on housing. Now, Mayor Thomson, who ran in part on her experience as the CEO of Habitat for Humanity here in Monroe County, blamed other jurisdictions for transferring their homeless populations to Bloomington. She says that people come to Bloomington for resources like rehabilitation or hospital services that are unavailable in their own place of residence. And that's true. I mean, Bloomington, Indianapolis, seems like these blue, Democratic run cities actually try to take care of people. So, other jurisdictions will send their folks to those places. And then these people find themselves unable to get back to their place of residence and wind up here in Bloomington on the streets, in our limited shelter capacity, in tent villages, just like this one in Indianapolis. She did not say who is doing this, but did say that other cities in town in Indiana are sending their people here to Bloomington. Jennifer, have you seen any of this?
Have I seen?
Do you know if folks down that way are getting sent up here to Bloomington, or are they sending them to Louisville? Or
I have not heard any of that. Yeah, I have no idea.
Well,
sorry.
What do you think? Does that comport with sort of the sort of thing you see with folks that are struggling? There aren't services nearby, and then they have to go, maybe the next town or the next couple towns over.
It's sometimes different depending on if you're in a rural community or more towards the city, because a lot of times in rural communities, people have been there longer. They are smaller. They have a different feel. They often know each other. So a lot of people can get a little extra help from family members or other people maybe in the community. Whereas when you are in, a larger area like Indianapolis, you're just one of many. A lot of times you kind of get lost in the shuffle. So people probably do gravitate more though towards those larger cities. There's more groups of people. It's easier to find a park bench, unfortunately, in the city than it is out, in the rural community. But as far as Bloomington, that is kind of a magnet, though, for a lot of folks, I think. Bloomington's very different than the rest of the state. And you've got a university there. So I would assume actually people needing some extra supports. A lot of times universities do fill in a lot of those gaps. So that might be another reason why people might gravitate there. IU has a lot of different schools. They do a lot of different supports with health and homelessness and rural communities and stuff as well. So
Yeah, and I can't speak to the university portion of that. I do know what homeless services we do have in the city are largely run through nonprofits or religious organizations. We certainly don't have enough. We do have quite a significant unhomed population in Bloomington for a city our size, and I do think that is specifically because we do try things like offering services and getting folks into houses and generally taking a hands-off approach from the incarceration standpoint. So you do sort of wind up in this vicious circle where places that are trying to do the humane thing, I think maybe are inviting more of a burden because, oh, here's a place where like maybe we'll actually get some help, or we can actually get some services, or we at least won't get arrested for just existing outdoors.
well, it's the same as like with the sanctuary cities. I mean, there are cities and towns where people know that they can probably be more supported. I want to say homelessness is a big issue everywhere. It's just that there's certain communities that actually acknowledge it and try to deal with it. I mean, I've lived out in Mooresville outside Indianapolis for years, and I didn't even really know there was a huge homeless population until one of my children had told me years ago when they were in school and they were down by the river, where I live in Clark County, more towards the Louisville area. There is a huge population, but I know just in my community in Charlestown that we have homeless people living in the similar ways that they did out there in Mooresville. And that is something that's being talked about more. In Southern Indiana, there is a homeless coalition. Hoosier Action also does a lot with homelessness in the Southern Indiana. They're out of New Albany. So like I said, it is a big issue everywhere. It's just more visible and talked about more in certain communities as well. Because
I do understand down there on the other side of the river in Louisville, they have a pretty good program. I think, oh, what is it? Hope Village, I think it was called. Yeah, Hope Village, and it's basically like I think Scott was talking about with the it's tiny homes, and
yes.
it's something that apparently has worked pretty good there, and maybe we could consider in towns like Bloomington or the big city like Indianapolis. Is not something that we're currently doing right now. There's so much more to talk about on this. It's such a deep subject, and in the wealthiest country in the history of ever, we should not have a homeless problem.
I want to throw something in on the homelessness before we leave. Just did something that I've learned. Like when you talk about homelessness, it's not necessarily the people that you see on the street or the people that you don't see on the street. There's different categories. There could be somebody who just lost their home, so they're temporarily staying with a family member or a friend, or maybe they have a voucher or somebody has paid for them to be in a hotel for a little bit of time, or they're coming out of an institution or prison. So there is just a lot of different types of homelessness, of people on the verge of becoming homeless as well.
Yeah, to add some statistics to that, I have these right here. They're talking about about 350 people. This is in Indianapolis. actually living on the streets. That's only about 20% of the city's homeless population that are actually living out on the streets. And yeah, like you said, you got people doubling up or living in cars or, you know, like long-term hotels and whatnot, you know. So it is a bigger problem than even what we see. And we will continue this discussion down the road. It's unfortunately not going away, but I did want to give you folks time to say your goodbyes and tell folks where they can find you online before we get out of here. Scott, where can the good folks find you?
Mostly on Blue Sky these days. Fuzzy Group on Blue Sky. So
Fuzzy Group. Interesting. All right. Very good. Derrick, where can the folks find you? I understand you have announced you're running for office again next year.
That is a possibility. For township trustee for Jackson County or Jackson Township, Morgan County. So that's a possibility. Looking at also a campaign manager spot for someone running for Congress. What I ran for. So, you know,
a lot of knowledge to share there.
Yeah. But you can find me at Facebook under Derrick Holder or the People's Fourth, and Blue Sky, Instagram, DerrickHolder.com. I'm all over the place.
Very good. I fully understand being all over the place. Jennifer, how about you? Where can the good folks find more from you?
More from me. I am all over the place, but I use Facebook most of the time for my social media. Jennifer David for Hoosiers is also just Jennifer David. I also work with people with disabilities through the Kimberly Renee Foundation and Outward Bound Community Services. And I got a new venture coming up here as well. So you'll find me all over.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jennifer David, Derrick Holder, Scott Johnson. I appreciate you being here with me. You've been a fantastic panel today. Can't wait to have you all back. But in the meantime, I will see you next week. This has been Who's Left This Week. I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.